Hi everyone, I'm Justin Reich. I'm an assistant professor here at MIT, and I have 5 tips for you about transitioning to distance learning during a pandemic. Tip number 1, partner with your students. As much as you can, get information from them about how they like to learn online or how they like to learn at a distance asynchronously, and figure out how you can use those ideas to improve your practice. All of us feel like coronavirus is something that's happening to us, but our response to it can be something that we build together. And young people spend lots of time learning online or learning on their own, and we need to figure out how we can take those ideas and use them to support our own practice and inform our own practice. Plus, if we ask people to help us co-construct our response, they'll be more motivated and they'll have more stake in the outcomes from it. Number 2, really think about self-paced learning experiences. So when we study what happens in typical virtual schools that were not created in the midst of a pandemic, one of the things that we find is that the most common model is that schools provide parents and students, or families and students, with an asynchronous curriculum that students and parents can do at their own pace. And then teachers spend most of their time checking in with students individually and giving them support and help and feedback. For young students, there's no expectation that this can be done alone. Virtual schools are typically a coached homeschool model, and they really, until 6th grade, 8th grade, early high school, depend upon a full-time parent being there. Now, obviously, it's not always the case that a full-time parent is available, so we need to be really realistic about how much time we can expect families to be able to spend with each of their individual children, supporting them during this time. A lot of states are recommending that at most, schools try to do about half the length of a typical school day. And that's sort of in line with what we know from homeschool models, where typically families do, on average, 2 or 3 hours a week of work. In full-time virtual schools, teachers very rarely spend more than maybe 6 hours a week on synchronous learning experiences, mostly happening asynchronously in a self-paced model. So if you're a teacher right now who's trying to transition to this distance learning model, think about how you can create learning experiences that you can give to students and their families that they can do in a self-paced way, and then your job is to regularly check in, provide feedback, reach out to the folks who you're not hearing from, and connect with them. A third tip is to really pay attention to struggling and vulnerable students. One of the things we know about online schooling is that the kids who do well anywhere, kids who are affluent, who are high achieving, who are already pretty advanced in their education careers, tend to do fine online. Kids who would do fine anywhere do fine online. But in the best of circumstances, most people don't do as well online as they do in person, and that kind of online penalty is even worse for students with low prior achievement, students in poverty-impacted neighborhoods, ethno-racial minorities, those kinds of things. Look at your roster, identify the students who were struggling most or you thought were most vulnerable in some way before the pandemic, and really think about how you can actively reach out to those students in the weeks and months ahead. You might print out your roster in a grid and put a little tick mark next to each student's name as you check in with them or give them a piece of feedback, and see if you can get 2 times as many or 3 times as many check-ins on the students who really you think are struggling the most during this time. Number 4 is to really keep your lesson planning simple. If we're going to make our learning experiences accessible to lots of students, some of them will be online, some of them won't. There won't be that many computers for every person in each house. There's going to be intermittent internet access and those kinds of things. Think about how you can create curriculum that can be sent by print, by phone, by text message. Think about short, simple assignments that are really rich and generative, but they aren't that complex to explain. We saw an assignment that we liked from the San Antonio Independent School District for a social studies lesson, which said, connect with a family member and ask them to describe the most important historical event that they lived through, and then write them a thank you note in appreciation and summarizing what you learned. So there's some social cohesion there, there's some family connectedness there, there's some core skills that are happening there, and the whole assignment could fit into a text message. I think those kinds of simple approaches are going to be the ones that can be translated into multiple languages, communicated in multiple ways. And then finally, and this is connected to the first one, keep partnering with students and families. Every few weeks, be reaching out to folks and saying, how is this going? What could we be doing better? What's working for you? What could we improve? What do you really like that we should do more of? What should we change? I think if families feel like they're partners in this experience that we're co-constructing together, that's the best possibility for having home learning during this period of time that keeps people engaged, that gives them some intellectual stimulation as we're all struggling with staying at home, and that puts us in the best possible position for returning back to school in the fall. My hat is off and my heart is with all the educators that are trying to make this work right now. And hopefully this Full Steam Ahead curriculum will help you.